Hey everybody, it's Brant Frost. Great to have you with us again. Today I'm joined by another candidate for second vice chair of the Georgia Republican Party, and she's got a long history of service going back 2 decades, and I'm really excited to hear her story and have her share it with you. You know, a lot of folks on the state committee have been in office for just one term or were just elected this year. So we don't really have a lot of people with a long track record of service. We have pretty fast turnover in these positions, but she's got a ton of service, been at this for a very long time, starting at the grassroots. So I'm very excited to welcome Shawnee Zappendorf.
Thank you, Brant, for having me today.
So in
Mhm,
the beginning, you
mhm.
started out as a citizen activist in Fayette County, if I
Yes,
remember
sir.
your story right, going, talking to people, talking to the school board, and then you helped a dear friend of mine, Mary Kay Backliel, when she ran for school board. Many people who were interested in the Common Core fight back then will remember Mary Kay ran for state school superintendent in
Right.
2014 and came and finished a close third in that race behind Richard
That's right.
Woods, and went on
Mhm.
to win that race. And and I remember that election year very well. I think there were 9 or 10 candidates in that
At
election.
least, yeah,
Yeah, I think
Ashley,
it nine
somebody
candidates.
ran.
Yeah, 8 or 9 candidates in that race, and I remember we got them all. It was the only time they all came to a county event in Coweta County in 2014. They all came and spoke to our Republican Party. They were all scrunched together, but we got them all in there. And you also worked for David Perdue, and you served as a county chair. And yeah, tell us about how you got roped into becoming a county chair. Were you voluntold to serve, or how'd that happen?
Well, I work 60, 80 hours a week easily, being a CFO and CEO before I early retired to help with the campaign for Trump 2024. So I volunteer whenever was needed. And our current chair at the time had gone to Linda Umberger, now clear. She had gone to run for national committee woman. So she asked me to help out. So the first vice chair became the chair, and majority the gentlemen that were in the party were a little bit older. So they used to cancel, June, July, August, and say, while the kids are out of school, and I'm saying like I'm the youngest person here, I'm the only one with children. They're old enough to come to meetings with me or stay at home. So, let's not cancel those. So I
Yeah,
started,
because those are critical months. Because when you get elected, nobody ever people forget about this, but you know this. When you get elected county chair in March of 2025, let's say, just take 2025, you're elected in March. The district convention's in April, the state convention's in either May or June. So basically everything through June is eaten up with party elections. And then
right.
from June, you've got about 3 months, maybe four, from June to about toward the end of the year. Then the Christmas season kicks in. And then in
Right.
January, it's the legislative session and the 2026 elections that take up everybody's attention. So you're elected to a 2 year term, but in reality, the time you're allocated to do anything, your own initiatives, any kind of projects in the county that
Mhm.
isn't going to be dominated by the calendar is really a 3 to 5 month window. After
Right.
June, between June and Christmas is pretty much in a 24-month term. You've got about 5 months to do anything before events take over and you have to respond to them. And that won't even be the case this year, as you know, because we got public service commissioner elections
Right.
this
Right.
fall. So we're going to have a double election, statewide
Mhm.
election this state.
Sure.
So you can't take summer off. That's critical. That's critical prep time.
I know. So I just ended up helping with, the election and the local elections. And then when it came to Dawson County, when they, instead of taking the months off, I helped with the regular meetings so that we can continue on. And one of the very first things that I did as county chair was to I invited everybody to come, that's running for the state GOP election. And we had everybody attend except maybe one person. So we have over
Remember
100
that?
people,
I
just
came
off
up there
of,
as a candidate.
hmm?
I was a candidate that I was running for
Right.
my first time as
You
second
remember
vice chair. I
coming?
remember I was up there.
Yeah.
Y'all had it at this really cool place that was sort of like an aircraft an airport hangar or an old airport. It looked like it had been a private airfield at some point because you had all this aircraft memorabilia. I
Hmm.
remember that place. It was really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, so I just started with that. And I have volunteered for a long time. So when, 2019 came around, they, my party voted for me to be their chair. And one of the things I did was, election integrity. And, that wasn't very popular back then. I was highly criticized. But a year later, end of 2020, when I was named in a lawsuit with Stacey Abrams with Fair Fight. So that's when I know I really did the right thing, right?
Mate, you've hit the big time. Stacey Abrams doesn't like you. You hit the big time.
I know me and David Clark and a couple of other patriots. One of my endorsers was District 10 chair, which is James Cooper. Mhm.
Yeah, that was Stacey, the rise and fall of Stacey Abrams is a very interesting saga. And she may
Right.
run for governor again. She's lost twice, but
Oh, hope not.
well, maybe she's thinking third time's the charm. But
Hmm.
the Democrats already have a pretty big field that's assembling already on their side. So, what did you in this race for second vice chair? What would you say are your top priorities?
Well, we should be serving the um, chairman to accomplish his agenda by serving with excellence, integrity, and loyalty, while being accountable to 159 counties of constituents and delivering the truth and transparency. So that seems to be a huge thing is, truth and transparency currently. So that's part of what I want to accomplish. But, I came from communications and training. I think those things are very important. We can have literally 101 type of class for, precinct training, which they do very well in Cherokee County. So there are already a lot of classes that are out there. We just need to adapt those. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We don't have time to reinvent the wheel. We have things like the Georgia Five-Star program. We have Catherine James with the USA Project. And, I could do easily any of those classes. Some of those ones that I helped with last year with the Trump Force was we were training the poll watchers. So I was in charge of make sure everybody gets trained that wanted to volunteer with Dawson County, and went ahead and schedule, their poll watching times and things like that up until the election night. We also had Trump Force captain training. So I was the one person that the director of Georgia Trump Force to translate, to have those material and translate for them. So, I was able to hold a Asian coalition event basically for the Trump Force team out there in Gwinnett.
Oh,
Mhm.
great. When you when you have served in these roles, and also as you look forward in the next year, um, I know that artificial intelligence is and AI is becoming the big thing now. It was only slightly used in 2024, but it seems like something that could be a huge help for mass
Sure.
training and answering questions. The Georgia GOP is the first party to have an AI chatbot on its website.
Right. Right.
Being able to upload information, ChatGPT allows you to actually create your own little mini AI chatbot where you can upload information into it, and then and then share the link with people where people can ask it questions if they need have training questions. If you've uploaded the training materials and such, it will scan those materials and give them answers for you.
Hmm.
Um, if things like that could enable you in this role to be able to reach a lot more people and
Sure.
share it with them. We set up
Right.
a Robert's Rules of Order bot with a copy
Right.
of Robert's Rules of Order for them to ask questions of Rob
Sure.
of and that's another huge tool that can help people rather than just trying to get through that 400-page book or
Right.
however many pages
Right.
it is.
Yeah, we have so much, we have to, we have so much work to do. We have to make sure all the Republicans, win up and down the ballot. So we don't have time for a lot of this stuff, but, we have more efficiency to make all these training material. And you yourself, I mean, you have so much knowledge and, that can be shared with everybody instead of everybody trying to figure out. We have so many new county chairs this past, term. So,
60, almost 60 out of 141.
right, because a lot of times, they may not know to ask for help or where to ask for help. So this is definitely something that, we could help, facilitate as a part of Georgia GOP to, train everybody.
It's so much easier because nowadays everyone has one of these little
Right.
phones. Back in the day, 10 years ago even, when I
Mm-hmm.
first became chair in 2013,
Mm-hmm.
your average delegate was in their 60s,
Sure.
and they weren't very active. I mean, they have a Facebook account, they might have an iPhone, but they might not.
Mm-hmm.
But now they're all on not just Facebook, but Twitter and YouTube and Signal. They understand how to use these things at a decent level. And so now it gives us the opportunity to really punch above. And it's so
Right.
much easier to train our volunteers, most of whom are are retired or close to retirement, than it was 10 years ago. Presents a great
Mm-hmm.
opportunity for training opportunities.
Sure.
As you look forward to the fall, how much emphasis do you think we will be putting on and should put on the public service commissioner elections, since those are going to be two statewide Republican commissioners who are up for reelection this fall, this November?
Well, number one, we need to make sure we have, our candidate for primary because people need to go and pick who they want for primary. I think right now, being Commissioner Eccles has been around quite a bit. He has a recognition. But, when it comes to the general election, we need to pay attention because we can't lose that seat to Democrats. That's the thing. All the fighting need to stop. All the drama need to be left at the door because we need to, continue that, Republican position. When you lose one, we lose the momentum. Look what happened. We lost two U.S. Senate seats. That was totally
Got
unacceptable,
back in
right?
that way. Well, I mean, the Republicans originally got in. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, through the Public Service Commission. If you look
Right.
back in history,
Right.
in the
That's right.
1990s, the Republicans, their first big wins were taking seats on the Public Service Commission, and
Right.
they basically devoured the Democrats from the bottom up. The
Mm-hmm.
Democrats, got really fortunate, lucky, or made their own luck, as the case may be in
Mm-hmm.
2020, when
Right.
they got those two Senate seats. They kind of started at the top. But historically, the Republicans took Georgia starting at the Public Service Commissioner level.
Right.
So we really do not want history to repeat itself. But we also
That's
have a
right.
bonus this year in that there is no Libertarian Party. The Libertarians lost their ballot access in 24, so they're not going to have a candidate on the ballot, which means that in 25 and 26 is going to be no runoffs. It's just going to be a
Mm-hmm.
Republican and a Democrat,
Mm-hmm.
and we can win it all in November. We don't have to worry about poll
Right.
watching in December. Thank the Lord.
That's right. But we definitely have to get them training. I mean, you don't want to wait till last minute. Of course, we can do refreshers when it gets, closer to time, but we can't stop training people for poll watching. And we can have the Trump Force Captain program once again, and get everybody to go out. So one of the things that I do is I actually work double duty. So I go through the Georgia GOP, but I also have to serve, not have to, but I also serve the Asian Coalition.
Mhm.
So this past year, we had Chairman McCoon and executive director at the time was Travis. And there's not one time when we ask him, hey, we need to meet. We have all this information to provide for you. And we actually provide it for all different coalitions. All the information are the same. So we spend the time and our own money. We do all the research. We find out uh, what area would be good for, let's say, a billboard, how much the radio station is going to cost. We have multiple newspapers. It's not just Chinese. We have Korean, we have Vietnamese, whatever languages, we go and research all that. So at the very first meeting that we have with Chairman McCune, we have all the information already research to provide for him that he can take to Chairman Watley, when they have the budget to do whatever they want with it. And we also shared it with Greater Georgia. We shared it with Turning Point employees, Faith and Freedom Coalition. And Greater Georgia, I just happened to volunteer for them, and I saw a message Senator Loeffler has sent out that she was going to spend so much money on minority outreach. So I reached out to her, and she not only had a sit down with us, we had a group of 10 people and tell us like, what do we need to do? And we told her exactly what we have researched. And when we have events, like we have the Korean festival or Vietnamese festival, they send people out there to work with us. Trump Force Captain with Georgia GOP, they sent people, all their,
That's great.
employees, they send people out there because like for instance, we went and we had a lot of Chinese grocery store owners, Vietnamese, Korean.
Is that the
We
largest?
made the
Is that the largest in the Gwinnett and Atlanta area? Is it the Chinese or the Korean? What are the largest Asian American populations in the Atlanta area that you found? Is
I
it
would think
Chinese or
that
Korean or
I would think
Vietnamese?
Chinese will be the highest right now. But the thing is, when they get together, I see a ton of Koreans. They get together, and then also the Vietnamese. And when they have events, seems like there are thousands of people there. And Chairman McCune had like personally spent the money and attended those events. So I get invited to the Vietnamese ones as well. And so he is there representing Georgia GOP in almost all of the events that we invited him to. And also, it's nice to have the Asian there at a Chinese grocery store, right? And then we have all these Trump Force, and then we have the Greater Georgia employees that come out and work with us, because they have all the material. I'm very proud to have, registered to vote for my older son's girlfriend, who is now, his wife, and also his parents. They've never voted, so they voted for the very first time
So
for president.
my next question about voter turnout in these communities. Historically, some of the lowest voter turnout by demographic is among Asian American voters. And the work you're doing is so important there. We're talking about the Public Service Commission. Turnout's going to be really low there. Historically, you have your really low turnout among Asian Americans. It's usually below 50%, even in general elections, although it's gone up a little in recent years. So
Yeah,
what you're
it
doing is
just went
very
up.
important. Yeah, what you're doing is so important, reaching these folks who don't usually vote. To what do you attribute that? Why do you think that you have 70 in 2012? I think you had something like 72% or 72 to 77% of white voters with a college degree voted in the 2012 election. You had about 55%, I think it was, of white voters without a degree voting. It's about a 20-point gap. You had about 65%, 65, 66% of black voters. Obama was running. They voted. You had about 48% of Hispanics, and only about 40 to 45% of Asian Americans voting. Lowest turnout of any of the groups. To what do you attribute that, and how might we be able to change that?
Well, the 2020 and 2024, I think the most recent might be 2022. They literally had, for this past one, I think 2 million new Asian voters. And just in Georgia, they just had the statistics out there that they had over between 300 to 400,000 new voters in Georgia. So, we're lying to ourselves if we don't think that the Democrats are already, approaching them. So I talked to a lot of the Asians, let's say they, nail salon owners or restaurant owners. When they go out to work, it's dark when they leave and it's dark when they come home. So they spend all their time working, and they just think like, okay, as Asians, we need to appreciate what we have. We are humble for what we have. We're trying to live the American dream, but they're working all those hours that they don't put the vested interest. A lot of times they want to stay under the radar, especially all these people coming in from communist countries. they don't want to have any kind of, issues by standing up. So that's what I've heard a lot of people not being active. But the ones that
Attitude
do,
is
I mean, we do
is
110%.
so their attitude, that attitude of, keep your head down,
You
stay
should be
out
grateful.
avoid controversy, avoid politics,
Mhm.
and concentrate on making a living, and your own, concentrating your own, family, your own immediate circle, and don't get involved in politics and that sort of
Mhm.
thing. It's
Right.
interesting how in California, the Japanese, when they moved to California, started moving there in numbers back a century ago, they followed a similar path. They did not get engaged in politics and almost at all, but eventually some of them who did became very successful. Ronald Reagan appointed a Sam Hayakawa to serve as head of the university system in California, and he did such a good job cleaning up Berkeley that in 1976 he was elected to the United States Senate as the first Asian American elected from a mainland state to the United States Senate.
Right.
But you see how the difference there versus, say, the Irish. When the Irish first came to America in New York and Boston, they immediately started
Mhm.
voting and participating in politics, and of course became part of the Democrat Party machine and got government jobs in
Well, that's
exchange
the
for it.
thing. Well, that's the thing. A lot of times, you ask some of the Asians why they're Democrats. They said, well, we were approached by Democrats first. Also, if they're coming from communists, I think Democrat, I mean, it's not making fun of them, but, it's a little bit closer to what they're used to. But we need to be out there reaching. One of my friends is just like, I'm so glad you're running because if we were all running for the school of the blind, president for the school of blind, then optics doesn't matter. But it's a lot easier for somebody who's Asian go into those doors. Not same thing with Hispanics, and to get a better perception. They'll come to the door, and that's just how it is. When people see people that they're familiar with, they tend to be more open. And we need to be out there reaching those people. And then we have like 1,500, with Sunny Wong. She had, volunteered when she could last year because of health reasons, of course, with her husband and all that. And, we have resources for that. We were knocking on doors for 2020 and then 2022. So the people are still there. They just need to be let known that, okay, we need to go knock on doors this weekend. There are people out there that can do the work. And we, kept them in touch this past term for 2024 with President Trump. That's how we were able to get some of those people back out from 2020 and 22 to continue on working. But like I said, it's just to
A
make
lot of
it
work.
easier. Mhm.
It's a lot of work.
So we have people already ready to go. Mhm.
Exactly. Well, as you're looking forward in this job, the role of a vice chair, the second vice chair, doesn't have a whole lot of description to it in the rules, so it's fluid, and you're basically available to help with whatever you're asked to do by the chair, as well as to be sort of a super volunteer, offering to assist, being
Right.
able to assist counties and parties around the state with what they need. But what would you say as people are getting to the convention? What would you say if as they're thinking about who to vote for and the four candidates in the race? So there's a decent chance, it's quite likely that there'll be at least two rounds of voting, maybe three, in that before a winner is chosen. So there'll be a lot of thinking, and people will be thinking, well, I need a first choice, but also need a second choice. So there'll be a lot of people who will be looking to fill out their dance card, so to speak. And so in as people are doing that, what would you say in closing to them why they should vote for you and the unique things you can bring into that role?
Well, I know I'm the one person that can bring unity. I don't just talk about it. I know a lot of people had mentioned it, but I'm the one person that can get all four candidates in a picture together, which was very rare. And but the thing is, I've already talked to all of them that if I were to be elected, they're going to have a seat at my table because, everybody has different ideas. We have people that want to work on different coalitions, and, you know, they're going to be constituents. They're going to be, somebody I serve as well. So I want the three of them to, provide their ideas. Let's get those done. And of course, my job is really to do what the chairman, to help him accomplish his agenda. And I would like to, I will serve it with excellence, integrity, and loyalty. And of course, serving our constituents in 159 counties by delivering truth and transparency, as well as, all the different programs with communications and training that kind of go hand in hand. We need to continue on training to promote election integrity and train our poll watchers. And if we can, replicate something like the Trump Force Captain program that, it was working, reaching out to the low propensity voters and let's see, just, all the one-on-one classes for people that are new, because there's a lot of people woke up after 2020 and realized the election was stolen, that they wanted to do something about it. And for our family, because of my two boys being in the military, that was important to have a good commander in chief and not somebody who was pushing DEI at them. They decided that they were going to do that when they were 16 and 17 years old. And when they finally graduated from the Citadel Military College of South Carolina in 2021 and 23, Biden had just went in office. So I'm so proud to say my older son, Jack, who just got his captain's ranking, and he blew up the name on the bottom. It says J. Donald J. Trump on his captain's form. I mean, I was kind of teary-eyed, but I was very proud of him. But that's the first paperwork that we've ever gotten for them that has his name on it. And it was just so emotional for us. And then we kind of joke about, my son and daughter-in-law, they just had a baby actually. So the baby was actually flown out hours after he was born. So we were joking that we're probably going to have Air Force in our family in the future.
Great.
So
That's
just in
great.
general,
Well,
people had kind of joke about
exactly.
how I've been, the one person that hadn't gotten picked on and flown under the radar. And I was just like, I'm here to work. Somebody wrote an article
Everybody
about
likes
me.
you. Well, that's a good strategy. Everybody, everybody like vote for me. I'm the one that you all like the most, or depending on as the case may be, the one that you dislike the least. Either way.
Yeah,
Either way it works. Sometimes in politics, it's the dark horse candidate who no one is looking at who gets in there in the end. And because a lot of times these elections do come down to a speech at the convention, if people like
mhm,
what you have to say, and if they just like you as a person. In the chairman's race, it gets a lot more, there's a lot of things that people consider, but oftentimes in the officer races, it just comes down to do they like you? And so it can be
right,
a very powerful thing. Thank you
right.
so much. I really
Thank
appreciate you joining
you.
us and look forward to seeing you in Dalton.
All right. Thank you so much, Brent.